human mechanic fixed a crying hatchling's toy, unaware that the Dragon Emperor himself was watching. Before we begin, drop a quick hi in the comments and tell me where you're watching from. It really helps the channel grow. The repair station on Outpost Gamma 7 was a symphony of whirring tools, glowing circuitry, and the familiar scent of machine oil. For Marcus Dean, it wasn't just a workspace, it was refuge. The only place in this colossal interstellar hub where a human could feel something close to dignity. Outside these walls, humanity was the galaxy's youngest species, technically welcomed into the Confederation, but treated more like amusing pets than equals. Marcus wiped sweat from his brow, tightening the final bolt on an anti-gravity stabilizer for a Vexillian trader. The aliens had sneered when he said it'd take 3 hours. He finished it in 2. Of course, no one would thank him. They never did. The station's PA crackled overhead. Attention. Repair Bay 4 will close in 30 minutes. All non-essential personnel, begin shutdown procedures. Marcus leaned back, exhaling. Just enough time to log his work and clean up before returning to the cramped human quarters. A metal cage disguised as a dorm. 6 years since Earth had joined the Confederation, and humans were still assigned the dirty jobs: janitors, loaders, mechanics. Even Marcus, once one of Earth's top robotics engineers, was now fixing alien coffee makers and children's toys. Then the repair bay door hissed open. Marcus didn't even glance up. "We're closed," he called out, still typing into his console. "Come back at 0600 station time." A strange sound answered him, something between a hiccup and a chirp. He turned and froze. Standing in the doorway was a small draconian hatchling, barely knee-high, clutching a broken toy to its chest. Its scaled cheeks shimmered with tears. Draconians, the apex species of the Confederation, rulers of hundreds of worlds, feared across the stars. Their technology was beyond human comprehension, and their wrath, legendary. Yet here was one of their children, alone, in his shop, crying. I'm sorry," Marcus stammered, standing quickly. "Are you lost? Where are your guardians?" The hatchling only chirped again, this time more distressed, and held out the toy. A mechanical dragon, its wing bent, lights flickering weakly. "Your toy?" Marcus asked softly, kneeling. "It's broken?" The child nodded, eyes wide and shimmering gold. Marcus knew what he should do. Call station security immediately. If the hatchling's parents found it with a human, things could turn ugly fast. But the little creature looked so heartbroken, wings drooping in perfect sympathy with its toy's broken frame. Marcus sighed. "All right, let's take a look." The hatchling hesitated, then placed the toy into his hand. It was heavier than he expected, crafted from an alloy he couldn't identify, clearly valuable. "Come on," he said, motioning toward his bench. "Let's see what's wrong with your little friend." The child followed, wiping its face with tiny clawed fingers. "What's your name?" Marcus asked, gently clearing space. "I'm Marcus." A series of chirps and trills came in reply. His translator implant processed it. "Kira." "Nice to meet you, Kira," Marcus smiled. "Is this your favorite toy?" The hatchling nodded eagerly, making a flying motion with her hands. "Got it. Broken wing, huh? I'll fix it up for you." As Marcus worked, he kept glancing at the door, half expecting a squad of draconian guards to storm in. But the outpost remained quiet. When he opened the toy's casing, his jaw tightened. The internal circuits flowed. Man-mechanic fixed a crying hatchling's toy, unaware that the Dragon Emperor himself was watching. Before we begin, drop a quick hi in the comments and tell me where you're watching from. It really helps the channel grow. The repair station on Outpost Gamma 7 was a symphony of whirring tools, glowing circuitry, and the familiar scent of machine oil. For Marcus Dean, it wasn't just a workspace. It was refuge. The only place in this colossal interstellar hub where a human could feel something close to dignity. Outside these walls, humanity was the galaxy's youngest species, technically welcomed into the Confederation, but treated more like amusing pets than equals. Marcus wiped sweat from his brow, tightening the final bolt on an anti-gravity stabilizer for a Vexillian traitor. The aliens had sneered when he said it'd take 3 hours. He finished it in 2. Of course, no one would thank him. They never did. The station's PA crackled overhead. "Attention! Repair Bay 4 will close in 30 minutes. All non-essential personnel. Begin shutdown procedures." Marcus leaned back, exhaling. Just enough time to log his work and clean up before returning to the cramped human quarters, a metal cage disguised as a dorm. 6 years since Earth had joined the Confederation, and humans were still assigned the dirty jobs: janitors, loaders, mechanics. Even Marcus, once one of Earth's top robotics engineers, was now fixing alien coffee makers and children's toys. Then the repair bay door hissed open. Marcus didn't even glance up. "We're closed," he called out, still typing into his console. "Come back at 0600 station time." A strange sound answered him, something between a hiccup and a chirp. He turned and froze. Standing in the doorway was a small draconian hatchling, barely knee-high, clutching a broken toy to its chest. Its scaled cheeks shimmered with tears. Draconians, the apex species of the Confederation, rulers of hundreds of worlds, feared across the stars. Their technology was beyond human comprehension, and their wrath, legendary. Yet here was one of their children, alone, in his shop, crying. I'm sorry," Marcus stammered, standing quickly. "Are you lost? Where are your guardians?" The hatchling only chirped again, this time more distressed, and held out the toy. A mechanical dragon, its wing bent, lights flickering weakly. "Your toy?" Marcus asked softly, kneeling. "It's broken?" The child nodded, eyes wide and shimmering gold. Marcus knew what he should do: call station security immediately. If the hatchling's parents found it with a human, things could turn ugly fast. But the little creature looked so heartbroken, wings drooping in perfect sympathy with its toy's broken frame. Marcus sighed. "All right, let's take a look." The hatchling hesitated, then placed the toy into his hand. It was heavier than he expected, crafted from an alloy he couldn't identify. Clearly valuable. "Come on," he said, motioning toward his bench. "Let's see what's wrong with your little friend." The child followed, wiping its face with tiny clawed fingers. "What's your name?" Marcus asked, gently clearing space. "I'm Marcus." A series of chirps and trills came in reply. His translator implant processed it. "Kira." "Nice to meet you, Kira." Marcus smiled. "Is this your favorite toy?" The hatchling nodded eagerly, making a flying motion with her hands. "Got it. Broken wing, huh? I'll fix it up for you." As Marcus worked, he kept glancing at the door, half expecting a squad of draconian guards to storm in. But the outpost remained quiet. When he opened the toy's casing, his jaw tightened. The internal circuits flowed. Not static wires, liquid metal that pulsed like living tissue. "Wow," Marcus whispered. "Whoever built this, they weren't just engineers. They were artists." Kira watched with wide eyes, tail flicking as Marcus carefully adjusted the broken joint. "You know," Marcus said, his voice steady as he worked, "back on Earth, I used to design robotic systems for deep space exploration. Now I mostly fix coffee makers." He smiled faintly. "But this is the most interesting thing I've worked on in months." Kira tilted her head, listening. Whether she understood or not didn't matter. It just felt good to talk. After 20 minutes, Marcus made the final adjustment. The toy's wing clicked back into place. "All right," he said, grinning. "Moment of truth." He powered it on. Marcus set the little dragon toy on the workbench and powered it on. With a soft whir of servos, the mechanical creature came to life, unfolding its wings, stretching like it had just woken from a nap, and letting out a tiny, triumphant roar. Harmless sparks flickered from its mouth, painting the air with color. Kira squealed in delight, clapping her small-scaled hands together. "Good as new," Marcus grinned, holding it out to her. "Maybe even better." But just as Kira reached for her beloved toy, the repair bay door hissed open. this time not gently but with authority. Marcus's stomach dropped. 3 towering draconian guards marched in, their polished armor gleaming under the workshop lights, and behind them came someone larger, someone important. His scales shimmered with intricate patterns of gold and crimson, and the heavy robes he wore marked him unmistakably as nobility. "Oh no," Marcus whispered. His pulse thundered in his ears as he instinctively stepped between the hatchling and the strangers. "I can explain." But before he could finish, Kira let out a happy chirp and ran straight toward the towering figure, clutching her toy. The noble knelt, his massive claws gentle as he took the repaired dragon from her. He inspected it in silence, the expression on his face unreadable, then slowly lifted his gaze to Marcus. Golden eyes locked on him, sharp enough to cut steel. Marcus froze. He knew what this looked like. Humans had been warned. Direct, unauthorized contact with draconian offspring was forbidden, punishable. The noble rose to his full, imposing height, nearly 8 feet tall. When he spoke, his voice rumbled through the air like distant thunder. "You fixed my daughter's cherished possession." The words were perfectly translated, smooth, deliberate. "I did, sir," Marcus managed, keeping his voice steady. "She was upset. I couldn't turn her away." The draconian studied him for a long, tense moment. Most would have called security. Marcus swallowed. "She was crying. Where I come from, you don't ignore a child in distress, no matter the species." Something subtle shifted in the noble's expression, an emotion Marcus couldn't quite name. "You are Marcus Dean," the draconian said, as if tasting the words. "Station mechanic, Bay 4. "Yes, sir." "Yet you handled a piece of draconian craftsmanship with precision and respect." Marcus shrugged lightly. "It's just a toy with a broken wing. The mechanics are universal, doesn't matter where you're from." The noble signaled to one of his guards, who stepped forward with a scanning device. "May I?" he asked, gesturing to Marcus's workstation. Marcus nodded, heart pounding. The guard swept the scanner over his tools and the repaired toy. Data flickered across the screen in flowing draconian script. "Interesting," the noble murmured. "No restricted tech, no adaptation devices. You truly repaired this with, what do your people call it? Mechanical intuition?" Marcus gave a faint smile. "Guess I just fixed a broken toy, sir." The corners of the draconian's mouth turned upward, almost a smile. "You are either exceptionally humble or entirely unaware of what you've accomplished." He turned toward Kira, who was now spinning happily, making the little toy dragon soar through the air. "My daughter has not stopped grieving over this toy since it broke 3 cycles ago," he said quietly. "Our own technicians declared it unsalvageable. The neural matrix was corrupted beyond repair." Marcus blinked. "Neural matrix? I thought it was just a toy." "A learning companion," the noble corrected. "It carries memory storage and developmental data. It was crafted to grow with her, emotionally and cognitively. To lose it would have meant losing part of her childhood." Marcus felt the weight of that. "I'm glad I could help, sir." She seemed pretty attached to it. The noble nodded slowly. "I am called Thaxos," he said finally, almost as an afterthought. "You have my gratitude, Marcus Dean." He turned, his robe sweeping the floor as he gestured for Kira to follow. The little hatchling waved excitedly before taking her father's clawed hand, and then they were gone. The room fell silent. The hum of the machines was the only thing that reminded Marcus he was still alive. He stood there for a long moment, wondering if he'd just dreamed the entire thing. Then his comm unit buzzed. A new message flashed across his terminal, an official commendation from Draconian Diplomatic Services. Recognition for technical excellence and compassionate assistance. Attached was an access pass to restricted engineering databases. Marcus stared at it, speechless. That kind of clearance was impossible for a human mechanic. What had just happened? He didn't know it yet, but the noble he'd just met wasn't a noble at all. Thaxos was the emperor of the Draconian Empire himself, visiting the station under deep cover for diplomatic reasons. and Marcus had just unknowingly performed what the Draconians considered a sacred act, helping a child in need, expecting nothing in return. By morning, the entire station was buzzing. Whispers spread faster than plasma fire. Humans were being called into interviews with Draconian envoys. New engineering posts, once off-limits, suddenly opened to human applicants. Something had changed in the delicate political balance of the galaxy, all because one human fixed a crying hatchling's toy while the Dragon Emperor watched. When Marcus arrived the next morning, the repair bay was packed. A line stretched down the corridor, aliens of every species holding broken gadgets, hoping to meet the human with the magic hands. "What's all this?" Marcus asked, setting down his tools. Terry, the mechanic from the next bay, smirked. "You're famous, man. Word is you impressed some big-shot Draconian yesterday. Everyone wants you to fix their stuff now." Marcus groaned. "I just fixed a toy." "A royal toy," Terry corrected. "Belonging to someone very, very important. The whole station's been in chaos since last night. They're even talking about sending a human delegation to Draconia Prime." Before Marcus could reply, his supervisor rushed over, pale, sweating, and visibly shaking. "Dean," he stammered. "There you are." Marcus barely had time to wipe the grease from his hands before his supervisor rushed in, wide-eyed and pale. "You've got visitors," he said in a low, urgent voice. "Important ones, Draconian High Command representatives, and Ambassador Chin from Earth." Marcus froze. "Wait, what? Why would they want to see me?" "Just go," the supervisor hissed, "and for everyone's sake, be polite." Moments later, Marcus found himself walking the pristine halls of the administrative level, a place mechanics like him rarely saw. His mind raced to make sense of it all. He had only fixed a toy, that's all. Any decent person would have done the same. The conference room doors slid open with a smooth hiss, revealing a scene that made his heart skip a beat. Around the long table sat 3 Draconian officials in formal regalia, the human ambassador from Earth, and 2 Confederation diplomats. Near the window, gazing out at the stars, stood Thaxos himself. "Marcus Dean," announced one of the diplomats, "as requested." Every pair of eyes turned toward him. Marcus instinctively checked if his uniform was even clean. "Mr. Dean," said Ambassador Chin, rising to greet him, "thank you for joining us. Please, sit." Marcus did as told, feeling like a wrench thrown into a council of gods. Then Thaxos turned from the viewport, his golden eyes steady and unreadable. "Yesterday," the Emperor began, "I witnessed something unexpected. A human with no access to advanced tools or Draconian training repaired a device our own engineers had deemed unsalvageable." One of the officials slid a datapad across the table. Schematics of the toy glowed on the screen, annotated with notes about its neural matrix and recovery behavior. "This is no ordinary toy," the official said. "It houses a simplified version of our ancestral intelligence, a learning core. When damaged, its systems collapse entirely." Marcus studied the diagrams. "I just realigned the power flow and reset the feedback loop," he explained. "The physical issue was minor. The core just needed stable energy to heal itself." The Draconians exchanged curious glances. Thaxos leaned forward. "That," he said, "is precisely what intrigued me. Our engineers tried to fix the matrix directly. You, however, gave it the means to heal itself. You thought differently." Ambassador Chin smiled faintly. "Emperor Thaxos has made an extraordinary proposal, a joint cultural and technological exchange. Humans will work side by side with Draconian engineers." Marcus blinked. "Because I fixed a toy?" "Because," Thaxos replied, "you demonstrated something we may have underestimated. Human adaptability, creative problem-solving." He paused, his tone softening. "And compassion without calculation. You helped a child not for gain, but simply because she needed help." One of the Insectoid Confederation delegates clicked disapprovingly. "The Emperor's proposal is premature. Humans are new to the Confederation, primitive, untested." Thaxos cut him off. "And yet this human achieved what our own experts could not. Perhaps wisdom lies in seeing the universe from a new perspective." Marcus shifted uneasily. With respect, I'm just a mechanic. I don't represent humanity's potential. Thaxos's golden eyes met his. Perhaps not, but you've shown what your kind can bring. Unorthodox solutions, humility, and kindness without motive. The Emperor turned to the room. My decision is final. The exchange program begins immediately with this human as our first participant. Me? Marcus blurted. You've proven both skill and cultural respect, Thaxos said. You will serve as the first human technical advisor to the Draconian Engineering Guild. Ambassador Chin looked stunned. With all respect, Emperor, Mr. Dean is a mechanic, not a diplomat. It is a technical post, not a diplomatic one. Thaxos interrupted smoothly, and I have seen his work firsthand. The room fell silent. The decision was made. One great wing unfolded above them, and he blinked in disbelief as the torn membrane began to knit itself together, sealing the boy in from the chill of night. Impossible, he thought. This should not be. And yet it was happening. If the renewal continued, what then? He could not vanish into the stars and leave the boy with nothing but a fading memory. Nor could he remain a dragon in a world that no longer believed in such things. There had to be another path, a way to walk among humans unseen, shape-shifting. Yes, it was possible. Dragons had once mastered such arts. It would drain him, perhaps nearly destroy him, but his newfound energy might be enough. And for what purpose? To guard this child? To watch over him as he grew? The idea was absurd. Draconis had never taken responsibility for any life but his own. But as he watched Lucas sleeping, one small hand curled beside his snout, the dragon felt something unfamiliar stir again within him. The boy had given him something priceless without ever knowing it. Not just a stay of death, but a reason to live. The wonder in those young eyes had rekindled what time and loss had burned away. Curiosity. What would it be like to see through human eyes? To walk among them? To experience life, fleeting and fragile, the way they did. One heartbeat at a time. For the first time in millennia, Draconis found himself waiting eagerly for the dawn. And when the realization hit him, it nearly brought a smile to his massive face. The feeling, strange and small and impossibly bright, was one he had almost forgotten. Hope. The boy stirred in his sleep, one hand tightening around the ridge of the dragon's brow as if holding on for safety. Sleep well, young one, Draconis whispered softly, his voice low as a mountain's hum. Tomorrow brings a new beginning for us both. As night deepened, the dragon gazed at the stars, not as one weary of their light, but as one seeing them anew. He had been ready to join them in eternal silence. Now, for the first time in eons, he wondered what other marvels might yet await. When morning came, light filtered through the trees, dappling the boy's face. Lucas stirred, blinking away sleep before realizing where he was, still perched on the snout of a living legend. "You're still here," he exclaimed, relief and joy mingling in his voice. "I thought maybe I dreamed you." "I am still here," Draconis said, his voice stronger now, resonant once again, though not for the reason I expected. Lucas sat up, rubbing his eyes. "You don't look sick anymore," he said in wonder. Indeed, the dragon's scales shimmered faintly in the morning light, the dull ash and gray replaced by deep charcoal laced with hints of blue and violet. "I am recovering," Draconis admitted. "Something unexpected has occurred, something I once believed to be myth." "Magic?" Lucas asked eagerly. Draconis tilted his head. "From your perspective, perhaps that is the best word, though in truth it is a natural process your science does not yet understand. Like when caterpillars turn into butterflies?" The dragon blinked, momentarily surprised, then smiled, a slow rumbling sound like distant thunder. "Yes," he said softly, "very much like that." Lucas grinned, proud of his comparison. Then his smile faltered. "My mom and dad are probably super worried. I need to go home." "Yes," Draconis agreed. "Your absence has surely caused them distress." He lowered his great head to the ground so the boy could slide safely down. "I will see you home." Lucas hesitated, turning back. "Will I see you again?" he asked quietly. Draconis paused, caught off guard by the question. "Would you wish to?" "Of course," Lucas said, beaming. "You're the coolest thing ever. And I told you I'd keep you company." "And so you did," Draconis said, inclining his head. "And—" "Approaching final orbital position," announced the ship's AI in smooth Draconian standard. "Prepare for atmospheric descent." Marcus swallowed hard. It was really happening. He was about to become the first human to set foot on Draconia Prime, the first to walk among the legendary engineers who shaped entire worlds. All because he couldn't ignore a crying child. The descent was unlike anything he'd ever experienced. Smooth, silent, seamless. Draconian technology made human starships feel like clumsy relics. Through the viewport, the planet unfolded in layers of cloud and light. Below stretched vast cities of crystal and alloy, their towers glimmering like starlight trapped in glass. The eternal flame touched down on the Imperial landing field, a vast expanse of polished obsidian ringed with colossal statues and spires that shimmered under the twin suns. Waiting below was a line of Draconian officials, their armor reflecting gold and azure hues. "Remember what we discussed," Larrick murmured as the airlock cycled open. "Bow to the guildmasters, but don't lower your gaze completely. It implies submission. Speak only when spoken to, and under no circumstances mention the princess's toy unless His Majesty brings it up first." Marcus nodded, heart pounding. "Got it." The heat of Draconia's sunlight hit him as they stepped onto the plaza. The air was sharp, charged with an almost electric scent. Ahead, 7 guildmasters stood in formation, each wearing ceremonial robes embroidered with shimmering schematics and symbols of their craft. "So this is the human who impressed our emperor," said the eldest, his scales faded to pale blue with age. "You are smaller than I expected." Marcus bowed as instructed. "Thank you for welcoming me to your world, Master Zindarax. I look forward to learning from your wisdom." The old Draconian's eyes narrowed slightly, then softened with faint intrigue. "We shall see which of us ends up learning more," he said. Before the conversation could continue, a ripple passed through the crowd. Guards snapped to attention. The guildmasters turned toward the far end of the landing field where a procession approached, slow, deliberate, regal. Larrick leaned close and whispered, "The Emperor. Remember, bow deeply." Marcus drew in a steadying breath. "And don't speak unless spoken to." "Yeah, I remember." Emperor Thaxos moved with a quiet, unstoppable grace, each step radiating command. His golden scales caught the light like molten metal, his presence bending the air with sheer authority. But it wasn't the Emperor that caught Marcus off guard. Walking beside him was a small figure clutching a familiar mechanical dragon. "Princess Kira insisted on being present," Thaxos said, his voice carrying easily across the open field. "She wished to see her friend again." Before anyone could react, Kira broke from the procession and ran straight to Marcus, wrapping her tiny arms around his legs in a fierce hug. A collective gasp rippled through the Draconian dignitaries. The guards tensed. Marcus froze, completely unsure what the proper protocol was for being publicly hugged by the Imperial Princess. He looked at Larrick helplessly, who looked just as stunned. Then from deep within Thaxos's chest came a low rumbling sound, the Draconian equivalent of laughter. "It seems," the Emperor said, amusement shining in his golden eyes, "that my daughter has made her own diplomatic decision." The great doors of the Imperial Hall opened, and Marcus Dean stepped forward under the watchful gaze of the Draconian Emperor. A deep, resonant voice echoed through the chamber. "You may greet her properly, Marcus Dean. She has spoken of nothing else for days, waiting for your arrival." Carefully, Marcus knelt to meet the bright-eyed princess at her level. "Hello again, Princess," he said warmly. "I see your dragon is still in perfect shape." Kira's entire face lit up. She proudly raised the small mechanical dragon, its wings flapping with a soft metallic hum as tiny sparks of color fluttered into the air. "Zenith flies better now," she said eagerly, her words smoothly translated by Marcus's implant. You fixed him good. I'm happy. Marcus smiled, genuinely moved by her excitement. When he looked up, he noticed Emperor Thaxos studying him silently, his expression unreadable. Come, the Emperor finally said, his tone softening. There will be time for ceremony later. For now, Marcus Dean, let us show you where you will be working. To the shock of the guild masters, Thaxos himself led Marcus through the vast complex that housed the Draconian Engineering Guild. Princess Kira skipped alongside, her energy bright against the metallic corridors. She pointed to enormous glowing towers that pulsed with energy. The tall towers make the weather nice, she explained proudly, and those shiny bridges can take you anywhere fast. Marcus chuckled. Your standard is excellent, Princess. You speak very well. I've been learning, Kira said with a proud little nod. Father says I must speak with all species. I like human words. They bounce. Thaxos glanced down at his daughter, pride flickering in his reptilian eyes. Kira has always had a gift for languages. It will serve her well when she takes the throne one day. As they walked deeper, Marcus's awe only grew. The Engineering Guild headquarters was unlike anything he had ever seen, a breathtaking fusion of architecture and living technology. Massive open halls buzzed with energy as draconian engineers worked among holographic blueprints, shimmering fields, and humming machinery. Energy barriers flickered like liquid glass containing experiments that looked as dangerous as they were beautiful. This, Thaxos said, stopping before a cleared area, will be your workspace. The tools and machinery were a curious mix of human and draconian design, as if two worlds had been woven together. Our guild masters were unsure which methods you might favor, Thaxos continued. So, they have prepared both. Marcus's professional curiosity surged. He could barely contain his excitement. The technology here represented the pinnacle of known science, beyond anything humanity had achieved. If I may ask, Marcus said carefully, what exactly will I be working on? Thaxos gestured to a guildmaster who stepped forward carrying a small translucent cube. Inside it, light patterns moved like liquid fire. This, the master said, placing it on the table, is a neural matrix compiler, similar to what powers the princess's toy, though infinitely more complex. We've encountered difficulties. Marcus leaned closer, eyes narrowing. What kind of difficulties? Instability, another master replied. The matrices work flawlessly in small devices, like toys or simple assistants, but when scaled up for complex systems, they become erratic, unpredictable. We've studied this problem for decades. Thaxos's voice rumbled through the chamber. Our greatest minds have tried every approach, yet the answer eludes us. Marcus frowned slightly. And you believe I might see what your people have missed? With all due respect, Emperor, your technology is far beyond ours. Perhaps because you are human, Thaxos said thoughtfully. You think differently. When our experts tried to repair Kira's toy, they focused on rebuilding the damaged neural pathways. But you strengthened the supporting systems, allowing the matrix to heal itself. That is insight. One of the older guild masters scoffed. Fixing a toy is one thing, Emperor. What we deal with here is far beyond playthings. Perhaps, Thaxos countered calmly. Yet the principles of life and connection are often the same, no matter the scale. As the guild masters murmured among themselves, Kira tugged gently at Marcus's sleeve. He looked down, and she held up her little dragon Zenith. Zenith was sad when he couldn't fly, she said softly. His memories were getting lost. But you helped him remember. Marcus froze at her words. Memories. He glanced at the glowing cube on the table, then back at the toy in her hands. May I? He asked. Kira nodded and handed Zenith over, trusting him completely. Marcus studied the toy carefully, tracing its structure with thoughtful precision. This matrix, it's designed to form attachments, isn't it? Emotional bonds with its owner. The guild masters exchanged uneasy glances. One finally admitted, that is correct. The smaller matrices are programmed to develop affinity patterns through interaction. But the larger systems, Marcus continued, thinking aloud. You isolate them. They're kept alone. No interaction, no connection. A heavy silence followed. One master spoke hesitantly. They are kept in controlled environments for safety. We cannot risk random attachments. Marcus nodded slowly. On Earth, there's an old saying, no man is an island. It means people need connections to stay whole. What if your neural matrices are the same? What if they need relationships to remain stable as they grow? The Draconians exchanged startled looks. Their low voices rose in debate, words overlapping too quickly for his translator to process. Then Emperor Thaxos raised a hand. The hall fell silent. An intriguing theory, he said. Tell me, Marcus Dean, how would you test it? Marcus's gaze drifted from the toy dragon in his hands to the cube on the workstation, his mind already racing with possibilities. Marcus leaned forward, eyes bright with curiosity. If I understand correctly, he said carefully, both use the same fundamental technology, just at different scales of complexity? The guild masters nodded in silent agreement. Then let's try something simple, Marcus continued. Let's introduce elements from Zenith's programming into your experimental matrix. Not a full integration, just enough to see if the attachment protocols can stabilize it. Preposterous, one of the older masters barked. We will not contaminate advanced research with the coding of a child's toy. With respect, Marcus replied calmly. That child's toy has a neural matrix that's been stable for years, despite physical damage. Maybe there's something in that stability worth understanding. For a long moment, silence filled the lab. Then Emperor Thaxos turned toward his engineers. Prepare a controlled environment, he said, his voice deep and steady. We will test the human's approach. The next 12 hours were a blur of motion and light. Marcus worked shoulder to shoulder with the guild masters, their skepticism slowly melting into fascination as they extracted and adapted fragments of Zenith's programming. Kira stayed nearby, watching intently as her tiny dragon companion became the key to something far greater. Eventually, exhaustion caught up with her, and she drifted to sleep in a chair that had been brought just for her. The affinity algorithms are remarkably elegant, one of the younger masters murmured as he examined the modified code. So simple, yet effective. That's often the best kind of engineering, Marcus said with a small smile. Elegant simplicity. When the system was finally ready, word had already spread across the complex. Engineers, technicians, and apprentices gathered quietly at the edges of the chamber, eager to witness the experiment. Neural matrix integration at 60%, a technician reported. Stability readings holding steady. Marcus held his breath as the readings glowed a reassuring green. The cube within the containment field pulsed softly, almost like a heartbeat. 70%, 80, 90. Then a sudden alarm tone sliced through the air. Fluctuation detected, the technician warned. Matrix showing signs of distress. Marcus's eyes darted between the readings and the glowing cube. Something wasn't right. It was accepting the programming, but rejecting the emptiness around it. It needs something, Marcus murmured. Something to bond with. Before anyone could react, he stepped forward and placed his hand directly on the containment field. It wasn't designed to stop contact, only to monitor it. And his fingers slipped through effortlessly, touching the cube itself. Gasps echoed around the chamber. The guild masters shouted warnings, but Thaxos raised a single clawed hand. Let us see. The cube flared brilliantly, pulsing once, twice, then settled into a steady, harmonious rhythm. The alarms silenced. The readings shifted back to green. Integration complete, the technician said in disbelief. Stability at 97%, the highest reading we've ever achieved. The guild fell silent. Dozens of eyes turned toward Marcus, still standing before the softly glowing cube. What did you do? One demanded. Marcus slowly withdrew his hand. I didn't do anything, he said, equally astonished. I just made contact. I thought it needed a connection. Something real, not just theoretical. Thaxos's eyes glimmered with understanding. You formed a rudimentary affinity bond, he said quietly. Like the one between Kira and her companion, only on a much grander scale. A small voice spoke from behind them. Is it happy now? Everyone turned. Kira was awake, clutching Zenith in her arms, staring up at the glowing cube. Marcus smiled gently. I think so, he said. He didn't have proof, but somehow he knew it was true. The Matrix felt content. Fascinating, one of the older masters murmured. We always treated the matrices as cold machines. It never occurred to us they might need emotional connection. Marcus nodded. But they're modeled after your own neural patterns, aren't they? And Draconians thrive on connection. Your clans, your families, your empire, it's all built on relationships. Emperor Thaxos regarded him with something new in his eyes. Respect. Once again, Marcus Dean, he said slowly, you've shown us something that has been before our eyes all along, yet invisible to us. In the days that followed, Marcus worked hand in hand with the Engineering Guild. His insights sparked a quiet revolution. The breakthrough with the neural matrix led to others, new theories, new designs, and a complete shift in how the Draconians viewed artificial intelligence. Across the Confederation, whispers spread. The mighty Draconian Empire, once proud and isolated, was now collaborating with humanity, the youngest and least advanced species in known space, and together they were achieving things no one had imagined possible. 6 months later, Marcus stood once again in the Grand Imperial Hall, this time not as a guest but as an honored representative. The chamber was alive with dignitaries, banners, and a sense of history in motion. 20 new humans, engineers, scientists, and explorers, stood beside him, ready to begin a new chapter of interspecies cooperation. As Emperor Thaxos spoke to the assembly, Marcus felt a gentle tug at his sleeve. He looked down to see Princess Kira, her amber eyes shining. Father says you're staying, she whispered. Is that true? Marcus smiled warmly. If that's okay with you, Princess. Her face lit up. Zenith will be happy, she said with pure sincerity. He likes you. I like him too, Marcus said softly. And I like it here. It was true. Despite the challenges and differences, Draconia had become home. His work had meaning. His friendships, especially with Kira and Thaxos, gave him a sense of belonging he'd never felt before. As the ceremony ended, a familiar voice called from behind him. Ambassador Chin approached with a knowing smile. You've become quite the diplomat, Dean, she said. When I first met you, you were fixing coffee machines in a repair bay. Marcus chuckled. Guess I just needed the right kind of wiring, he replied. The hall erupted in applause as the banners of both species unfurled side by side, human and Draconian, shining together under the great dome of light. A new age had begun. Ambassador Chin smiled as she approached. You know, she said, when I first met you, you were fixing coffee machines in a repair bay. Now you're revolutionizing Draconian technology and changing interspecies relations. Marcus gave a small, humble shrug. I just fixed a toy, Ambassador. Everything else just sort of happened. Don't underestimate what you've done, Chin said seriously. Humanity's place in the Confederation has changed because of you. The Draconians speak of us as partners now, not primitives. Other species are rethinking everything they thought they knew about human potential. Before Marcus could answer, Emperor Thaxos approached, his golden scales reflecting the soft light of the Grand Hall. Princess Kira walked beside him, still clutching Marcus's hand with innocent pride. Ambassador Chin speaks the truth, Thaxos said, his deep voice resonating through the chamber. But perhaps the greatest lesson was for the Draconian Empire itself. He looked down at his daughter, then back to Marcus. We had forgotten something vital, that true advancement is not only born of power or precision, but of connection, compassion, and the ability to see value in others, no matter how small or inexperienced they may seem. Marcus felt a warmth rise in his chest, not pride but gratitude. "We may be new to the stars, Emperor," he said quietly, "but humans have been learning those lessons for millennia, sometimes the hard way." Thaxos nodded thoughtfully. "The best lessons often are." Then, with a faint smile, he added, "And now I believe Princess Kira has a request for you." Kira's eyes sparkled. "Zenith has a new friend," she announced proudly, pulling a small blue mechanical dragon from her pouch. "But his wing is stuck. Can you fix him?" Marcus knelt, gently taking the toy in his hands. The entire hall fell silent, aware of the symbolism in the simple act. A human mechanic once again repairing a toy for a draconian princess, but this time under the gaze of two empires. "I'd be honored, Princess," Marcus said softly. "Let's see what's troubling your friend." He worked with quiet precision, adjusting the wing's microassembly with tools that now felt like part of him. 6 months ago, he'd been an anonymous mechanic on a dusty station, fixing broken appliances and dreaming of a future that had long slipped away. Now he was at the heart of a revolution that had reshaped the galaxy, all because he hadn't turned away from a crying child. With a satisfying click, the blue dragon's wing snapped back into place. It flapped once, then again, releasing a soft hum as it came to life. Kira clapped her hands, her eyes glowing with delight. "Thank you, Marcus. They're both happy now." Marcus smiled. "That's what matters," he said. And when he looked up, Emperor Thaxos was watching him again with that same unreadable gaze he'd worn during their very first meeting. But now Marcus understood. It wasn't scrutiny. It was respect. Not just for him, but for humanity itself. For the reminder that kindness, creativity, and connection are strengths, not weaknesses. In the days that followed, as the new human delegation began their training, as agreements were signed and technologies shared, one truth remained at the heart of everything. Sometimes the smallest act of kindness can change the course of civilizations. And sometimes the most important audience is the one you don't even know is watching. Years later, when historians tried to explain how the legendary human-draconian alliance began, they spoke of treaties, trade, and technological breakthroughs. But those who knew the truth, including one humble mechanic and a young princess, remembered it differently. It began with a broken toy, and a human who cared enough to fix it. And that was the mechanic and the dragon princess. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more human versus alien tales that prove sometimes humanity's greatest power isn't strength, it's heart. I'll leave another story here on screen that I know you'll love. Big hug, and see you in the next one.